Welcome back to the Fearless Females Voice podcast, where women's stories and experiences are shared to empower and inspire others. Before we begin the podcast, I'd love for you to check out my free Stuck to Success quiz, which will help you discover which areas you're stuck in and why, and provide clarity on your next steps and give you an immediate action plan. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and you can find it on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. On this episode, I am joined by Gurjinder, who is a marketing and business strategist for female entrepreneurs and has earned the nickname Marketing Mummy. Gurjinder has worked her way up the corporate ladder into senior positions in the marketing field, which was amazing for her. She had great benefits, great work connections, and was living a great life. She then had her first child, and things started changing. She had an awakening moment where she knew she wanted to spend more time and energy on her family, but her work wasn't allowing her to. So she made the bold decision to leave her role and start her own business. On this podcast, Gurjinder openly shares the challenges that she faced as a woman in the corporate world, her family dynamics, how she planned for the transition into business, the difficulty she's had of running her own business, and why she now does what she does. Gurjinder does not hold back here, and her honesty and vulnerability was really refreshing. This is an episode not to be missed. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. Thank you so much, Gurjinder, for joining me on this podcast today. So I know you've got a really strong background in marketing. You've been in the industry for over 20 years, and now you've transitioned into a marketing and business strategist for female entrepreneurs. And I'm pretty sure you probably had some fearless decisions to make en route to getting to where you are. So let's start with, what does being a fearless female mean to you?
Yeah, so I think I realised this a couple of weeks ago. So my husband has actually been away for the last 3 weeks. And one thing everyone kept saying to me is, how are you going to manage on your own? How are you going to do all of this? How are you going to do this? And, all these kind of questions. And I was like, I got this. I can do this. And I think that's when I actually realised that, hold on a minute, that's what fearless means. Fearless really means knowing how powerful you actually are in yourself and kind of owning that power and not letting kind of society and the cultural beliefs really hold you back. And I think these last few weeks, I really embodied kind of what fearless meant. Like, I felt it was in my business, but when actually you take other people out of the equation and you realize, you know what, you're the hero of your own story. And that's what being fearless is about. No one else needs to rescue you. You're the only one that you need to do all of that. And that's what I feel fearless really embodies for me.
I love that. I love that it's owning your story, owning where you're at now, and just being in charge. It's so great. I think couldn't have said it better myself. So I love that. And in touching on your story, I'd love to know how did you get started into marketing? What made you go into it?
Well, I didn't, funnily. I started in sales. So okay. I actually, many years ago, I'm admitting my age here, but over 20 years ago, I actually started a degree in psychology. And I realised I didn't really want to get to the root cause of everybody's problems. It was super depressing for me, super depressing for them. So I kind of left uni because marketing wasn't even a degree option then. I think it was as a sideline with like business studies. And I thought, well, I don't want to go into business, how ironic. So I don't want to go into business. So I'll just take a step back from university and see what I want to do. And I actually got a sales job, and I found I was really good at sales. So I never went back to uni, and I stayed in sales until then I found, marketing started becoming a bit of a department within corporates, and it was something interesting. And I moved across to another department, and that's where the love affair with marketing started. And as I said, there were no degrees really centering around marketing on its own. So then I had to look at professional exams. So I got qualified with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. And that's literally how it began. And I've never looked back since.
And what is it that you love about marketing?
I think it's just where you can just bring so much together. It's still the people thing. So one thing I loved about psychology was being with people and being around people. And I think that's what led me into sales, because I was still connecting with people. And then marketing kind of brought psychology and sales together in a really, really kind of clever way. And I think that's what I loved about it most. And it's so changing, like as the world is changing, marketing changing, as people are changing, people are developing, as new platforms are coming in, it's just ever evolving. It's not boring like being an accountant. Sorry if anyone is an accountant, but you know, that kind of stays the same no matter where you go. Whereas with marketing, it's just always changing. And I was blessed to work for companies that had multiple brands across multiple industries. So I exposed myself to so much. So it was just always fun and never boring.
Definitely sounds like a very dynamic environment. So I can imagine it being really interesting and exciting.
Yeah, and it was quite glamorous as well. So, you know, you got to do all the events and all the PR stuff. So even though it was hard work, it was quite glamorous as well. So when you're a singleton in your 20s, it was literally like living the dream. So it was really good. So yeah, I just never thought to leave it and ended up staying there for absolute years and years.
But were you with one specific company for a long amount of time, or did you move around?
I moved around between a couple of companies, but the parent company was always the same. So there wasn't much difference between kind of the company I worked for, but the brands that I was exposed to was varying. So it was really good. So I worked on some really big air shows as well, got to travel the world doing what I was doing. So it really honestly was like kind of living that corporate dream.
I love that. And it's really interesting that you didn't start off in marketing. You were doing something else and you just happened to land there and find a passion for it, because it's something you still do now and you're still working in that field. So that's really interesting. It's quite rare as well. So it's nice that you were able to find your path and find out what it is that you wanted to do and your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I think we've all got this innate kind of thing where we want to just help people. We want to try and help people as much as we can. And I feel that marketing was that you were actually helping people, even if it was just to figure out how to market their brands and all of that stuff, you were actually helping people. So you still got a bit of that sense of kind of reward where you felt you were doing something good. Yeah. And I think that's what I always held on to.
I can see you've transitioned that into what you're doing now as well, which we'll touch on in a bit later on. But for now, with your career, what was it like transitioning through and working your way up in that industry?
It was cutthroat. It was really cutthroat. And I managed to, when I left, I was kind of the head of marketing. So I was the head of strategic marketing for a FTSE 100 company. So it was a big deal, but it was hard work as well. So I can't even say it was easy. It was super hard work. So while all my friends were busy enjoying themselves at university and having a nightlife and, you know, doing all the socializing, I was actually busy working. And even though I talk about the glamorous side of the job, the fact is the glamour was still, I was working late nights. And I had to do everything I could. And I always felt like it was a proving thing. And your job title kind of meant your success in those days, so working in corporate. So I always strived for that next title. So I followed the path. I went from like a marketing assistant to an executive to a senior exec to a manager. You know, I followed literally the ladder. I climbed the corporate ladder, and I felt I needed to strive for that job title. Obviously, now I know it means nothing when you're a business owner, because I'm also an administrator now, I'm a salesperson, I'm all these kind of things. But back then, it was hard work just to get up there. And I felt it was cutthroat at times, like, you know, in a corporate world where I'm quite a friendly person and I like to make friends along the way in my journey. But it kind of felt as well, you were competing against other people. And there was massive trust issues, and you just look back and think, wow, how did I survive that without, you know, needing counseling or needing trauma support and stuff? Because it's just as bad as childhood trauma. Corporate trauma is real.
It really is, isn't it? And I've experienced some of that as well. And when you said you look back and think, wow, how did I do that? Would you have changed anything throughout your career?
I think I might have changed who I worked for, because obviously the culture that is within a company is around who you work for. And kind of when I first started my own business, I started working for charities and charitable causes. And I loved that. So even though they were corporates, they were doing really good stuff with the money. And so you didn't mind being a bit cutthroat because you all had that end goal in mind. Whereas with corporates, you're just working to make one person super rich. And that, when you look back at it, is not great, because that one person isn't you or anyone within your family or within your direct network. So you could tend to work for somebody completely random to make them really, really rich. And that just felt not right to me. And at least with charitable or not-for-profit causes, the masses were going to profit. The cause that they were working towards was going to profit from whatever work you done, not just this one individual who kind of owned the company or were still the shareholders who were part of that company, so those kind of stakeholders and stuff. And, I look back and I would never go back to, and it really did shape, I guess, what we're going to talk about today as well. It really shaped my future path, and more so kind of what I want for my daughter. And, the women that are going to come after me in my family, I don't want them to have to experience any of that.
Let's dive into that then. I'm so intrigued to know more about it. So, well, I'll let you explain. So you were in the corporate world, and then now you've transitioned into business. So what has that transition been like for you?
So it's been crazy. It's been full of its own challenges, and it probably would have been easiest to stay into the corporate world because you get that regular salary, you know what's happening, you know where you kind of stand. But it really took my soul away, and I really feel I had to sell my soul. So when I actually left work, I was on a super amazing salary. Like, I was able to pay my mortgage, send my kids to nursery, and still have money left over to do lots and lots of stuff. So a really nice disposable income. But I literally felt like I was selling my soul to do that. And one of the reasons being that obviously the high flying career worked really, really well until I had kids, until I had these other people that needed my time more than this boss that wanted me to make him loads and loads of money. And when I started pushing back at stuff at work, I then realized that actually they were only using me. They didn't actually care about what was going on in my personal life, that I might have children, that I might have, they would need me. I was still expected to travel into London till the very last day of my maternity leave. The workplace that I had was very old school, so very much white middle-aged men in dark pinstripe suits. I used to be based in the city, so my commute was like 90 minutes. And there were certain things that happened. I had to return back to work after 6 months of giving birth, which to me felt okay. I felt I could just pass my son off to the childminders and I'll be fine. I can carry on with my life. I started noticing kind of behavioural issues with my son. I started noticing that he was more attached to his care worker, his key worker in nursery, than he was with me, because he saw her for like 12 hours of the day. He only saw me for 2. Which was really tugging at my heartstrings. And I think that's when I felt like I was fighting against myself. And, again, when I used to want to leave work, I can't even say early, when I wanted to leave work on time, it would be frowned upon. So, when you pack up at 5 o'clock to go home, everyone's looking at you like thinking, oh, you're leaving already. And you're like, this is the time I leave. And obviously, when you're declining meetings that are in your diary at 6:30 in the evening, because that's the time you're meant to be spending with your family, I knew something didn't feel right. And it was fighting with me for a long time, because I was just like, I've got this amazing job, which is giving me this fantastic life. But now I've turned into a mum, which was my decision completely. Not that it happened by accident or anything. It was my decision, very much planned. And I just didn't understand the implications that would have on my life. And so it all kind of started, the kind of seed started getting planted when my son was born. And I knew something had to happen, because he was going to suffer from it. And I just didn't want this child growing up without having a loving mother around him. It wasn't his choice to be in the world. It was mine to bring him into it. And that really tugged against me. And even though it planted a seed, I didn't do anything about it. I literally didn't do anything about it, because I just didn't have the guts to do it, because nobody in my world was doing it at that time. And the only person that was doing it was my sister, but she was equally struggling and putting loads of hours in her business. And I thought, do you know what, that freedom that I was craving, I'm not going to get it having my own business. So I'm better off staying where I am. At least I know I'm going to get paid at the end of the month and I can just bear with it. And I think the realization actually came to when I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter, I was just like, no, I can't do this for her. I can't see her letting me just be dragged through this corporate world and her feel that that's what life is about and what it's about for her. So I decided the day she was born, I started planning my exit strategy within work. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew I was going to do it. And the funny thing is, I was in hospital and I watched Shawshank Redemption. And I remember this so clearly. I was watching Shawshank Redemption. And when he escaped from jail, I was just like, this is me breaking free from my corporate world. And it took him about 20 years, right, to break free, to finally break through that tunnel and break free. And I thought, I'm not going to do it immediately. I'm going to plan it. I'm going to do it over a year. By the time her first birthday comes round, or her second birthday at that time, I'm going to leave. So I had a year off for maternity leave. And I thought, when I go back to work, I'm going to give myself another year to really plan. So by the time she's 2, I'm going to be out of there. And that's literally what I've done. I just planned all the steps that I needed to take, saved the money, whatever, done everything I needed to do. I had this whole strategy on how much money I needed to save each month to be my buffer for where I start my business, even the date I was going to hand my notice in, because I had a 3-month notice period as well. So the date I was going to hand my notice in to be around when my daughter turns 2, so I could be off for her birthday and for the whole of that summer. And Johnny, one thing I will never forget, the summer of 2018. It was when we had a massive heat wave anyway, but that was the first summer off I had with my kids. I didn't even put them into nursery. I took them out every single day. We were living these amazing adventures, and it's really when the magic happened and that kind of dream began.
Oh my God. Wow. What a story. You know, when you're talking, it reminds me a bit of, I don't know if you've read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg.
No.
But she basically works at Facebook in a really senior role, Facebook or Google, one or the other. And she started having children. And because she was in such a senior role, she also felt the guilt about, she was literally running out the office, trying not to be seen by others because she had to leave at 5 to pick up her kids or nursery or whatever. And she talks about the challenges for women in the workplace, especially as mothers. And I thought that companies were a bit more understanding or flexible with it, but it sounds like many of them are still in the same position they were. So what are your thoughts on women in senior roles who are looking to start families? Because I've had women on here talking about their fears around, oh, we can't reach this role because when I have kids, I'm either going to stay where I am or move backwards or whatever. So it's almost like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's quite crazy. So one of the industries that I did actually work was in legal industry. And one of the things they started to introduce as a package for females was egg freezing. So they were actually paying for you to freeze your eggs. And everyone was thinking, oh, wow, what a brilliant company to work for. But no, the hidden message there is don't have kids.
Exactly.
And wait until you've achieved whatever we want you to achieve in the company and then have your kids. And that's just like really controlling. And, you know, again, being fairless is you decide when you have children. It's your life. You decide all of that kind of stuff. You don't let your company and the prospect of jobs and climbing up the ladder determine that. And even in my company, you know, the signs should have been there. We had a senior leadership team made up of about 12, 14 people, and there was only 1 or 2 women in it, which kind of said everything. So even though companies have these policies and they're being more accommodating, what you see in practice is actually very, very different. Very, very different. And, you know, they will say things like, yeah, you can leave early, but yet they'll still set meetings up for 6:30 p.m. So even though they're giving those vibes that, you know, we are really understanding, we love having working mums, yeah, you can come back part-time, all of this kind of stuff. But what happens in reality is very, very different. And it's really, really disappointing. I've still got friends that are in the corporate world, and, you know, I really, my heart goes out to them. I really feel for them, and I really am super, super glad that I'm not there. And one of the things as well, Johnny, was that I found I was spending the majority of the money I was earning on mum guilt. I was just buying my kids love. So if they wanted a bike, I'd buy it for them. If they wanted a trampoline, I'd buy it for them. And whatever they wanted, I'd buy it for them, thinking that, hey, this is your mum loving you. But actually, all they wanted was their mum. They didn't want the money. They didn't want any of that. They just wanted the mum that could take them to the park when they came home, or could sit with them and watch a movie, or could make them some food. You know, the simple little things. That's all the kids wanted. And it took a while for me to kind of realize that.
And you mentioned for the first kind of 6 months you were on maternity leave, and then your son had to be put into nursery. And then that did impact your relationship. Would you say that has now changed from what it was? Is it still an impact?
It changed a lot, but I think I'm still working on it. I think those first 2-3 years of his life, where I was still at work, I was still absent, I'm still working on winning him over. And obviously he's a boy, he's playing hard to get anyway. But I do feel that things would have been a lot different had I been a very different mum in that stage. But obviously you live and learn. Those experiences are there to kind of teach you. And the funny thing is, I literally just ordered this week as well, the 5 love languages.
It's one of my favorite books. Oh, for children.
For children,
wow.
Yeah. So it's a children's version, because I'm like, do you know what? As my son is growing up, I need to understand his various love languages and how I communicate with him. And the best thing is, I've got time to do that. And, you know, rewind a few years ago, I wouldn't have had time to do it. And I probably would have, and I do think that he probably would have got to 18, 19, and he would have just left home. And that would have kind of been how our relationship worked. But right now I can identify these issues. I can identify all of this stuff. And I've got time now to give myself that space to learn about something different, because the deadlines I set are my own. I'm not working towards somebody else's deadline, because I found that even though I was finishing work at whatever time, I still had my laptop with me, and I'd be logging on in the evening, sending emails while I'm putting my kids to sleep. I'm like sending emails and stuff. And, you know, I didn't have time to read them stories. I'd put a story on YouTube while I'd be doing.
Wow. You know what? You say the whole piece around you learn from these things. And yes, you do learn. And the best thing is that you've not only learnt, but you're now implementing and teaching and supporting other women who may be going through this, because I've experienced what you have. I was really attached to getting the next promotion, earning more money, the benefits of having the salary coming in, a great salary coming in. And for me, it wasn't necessarily selling my soul, but it was more, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't excited. I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my purpose. And that led me to quitting. But it took me a long time to leave my role. And many women don't make that leap. They think this is it. As you said,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's an attractive package. They're keeping you there. And they fail to see, okay, well, I could be doing something different for my own life, but that keeps them there. So I understand the trigger that you had when your daughter was born, but how was it for you actually thinking, you know what, enough is enough, and I'm gonna make this move? Because this is a scary move, right? Leaving that attractive package. Because I've been there. It's scary as hell. I remember I set up so many meetings with my manager thinking, I'm going to do it. And finally my husband was like, you just need to do it. Like, just do it. And I was like, okay. So it's scary. So what was going through your mind? What was happening?
Do you know what? It honestly was super scary, because we even had health insurance that it covered my husband, it covered my kids. So there was all these perks that was covered, even like, you know, pension schemes and stuff. I was on a really good pension scheme that they used to have, like a historical one. And I was like, but it was all conditioning, right? It's all conditioning to make you feel like you have to stay in that place. And I really remember, and your messages this morning really made me laugh, because I thought these are the kind of messages I want to wake up to and have in my inbox, not the kind of messages I used to have in corporate. We'd be like, can you do this by 9 o'clock in the morning? And it's like 5 to 9 and I'm not even in the office yet. And it's just like, what? Hold on a minute. And even seeing people. So I much rather see your face than like my boss's face in the morning. And it was just like, oh my God. And there's little triggers that you think, do I really want to be seeing all these people every single day? And when you start saying no to those kind of things, that's when you know that obviously a switch has to kind of be made. But yeah, it's just one of those things that the one thing that I found really struggling was the financials. And I knew I was going to, because I was used to earning so much. And I knew I was going to go from earning a lot to earning zero, really, when you start your own business. And I still remember the first day, 13th of September was the first day that I was going to start work. And it was the day my kids were going to go to school. So I dropped them off to school, came and sat in my office, and I was literally like looking around going, my inbox is empty, my phone's not even ringing. What did I think? That these things were just going to happen? But yeah, I just remember it was the financials. But part of my exit strategy was making sure I had enough money. So even back then, I didn't expect my husband to cover everything. Even though I had him there, and we didn't have we did have the kids, but it was a big pressure on me as well to make sure our mortgage was covered, our kids' nursery fees were covered, and all of that kind of stuff. So I spent those 12 months within my exit strategy saving for a full 12 months of potentially not earning any money, so that I could still cover that mortgage and the kind of fees and everything like that. And it kind of helped us get through. And I think that's what sometimes holds people back, is that fear. And not everyone has a husband. Not everyone has a partner that can then step in and support that side. But even though I did have a partner, he's got his own business. So he earns bare minimum for himself as well, because a lot of the money goes back into the business. So even it felt like I was still doing stuff on my own, because I was saving the money and doing everything else. So yeah, I think that's the fear that kind of holds people back.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you said that, because some people ask me, or I get this a lot when I say, oh, I quit my job. And people are like, oh my God, you're so brave, you're so this. And I think, you know what? It wasn't just I'm going to quit. Mm-hmm. I did the exact same thing that you did. I made sure that I had enough money. I was able to financially provide for myself for as long as I needed. I didn't know I was going to start a business. So even though you did, I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I thought, as long as I'm financially stable, which is why it took me so long to get there. So it's good that you were planning your exit strategy, and it took you 2 years, you said, from start to finish to kind of get to that position. So I guess the moral is, if you want to quit, fine, but just think, okay, can I actually sustain my lifestyle? Can I actually live to my bare means? Like, can I do this? Can I make it work before taking any drastic action? It's almost making a calculated risk, or just understanding what that decision and outcome will mean. So
absolutely. And just to give an idea, the kind of stuff, we didn't do holidays. So we done staycations in the UK. We didn't go abroad anywhere, because we knew that would actually help us save. A good holiday was about 5 months mortgage for us. So that was a really good way of looking at it, of actually holding down the mortgages. We cooked a lot more at home, didn't eat out as much. And we just found creative ways of not spending a lot of money, so we could actually save more. Even with the kids, they had me at home. So I was like, all that mum guilt is out the window now. So those trampolines, those bikes that you guys all want, they're all out the window. You play with me now. I'm your main source of entertainment, and I come for free. So yeah, so we've done a lot of stuff to really pull back in those couple of years, so that we could save a lot of money to take that time out. We even put a house move on hold. So, we made some big decisions, and it all worked out. Which was really, really good. So it is possible to do it, even when you're on your own, as well as, if you've got a partner.
Well, this is the thing, right? So from what I hear when I speak to women as well, it's possible. if you are willing to make it possible. So the fact that you said you ate out less, for example, is something that we do as well. We don't really like eating out much anyway, but holidays on hold, like all of these little sacrifices that you may have gone on 6 holidays, you may only be able to go on 1 or 2, and it may be something in the UK instead of abroad. All of these things contribute to your sacrifices to getting to where you want to be for the end cause, which is, I guess, happiness or freedom or whatever it is, success that you want to achieve. So I really appreciate you being open and sharing that, because some people feel that when they start a business, it needs to be straight away, I'm going to have 10 clients, I'm going to be earning all this money because everybody else is doing it. That's what we're seeing online. And the reality is it's not quite like that at all. You're right in saying it starts off with 0. It starts off with you at your desk, like, am I going to get an email through? Do I take a call? What do I do next? And that's just the reality of it. It's something that you grow and you build. So how was it like for your first year in business? Is it what you were doing now with the...
Oh, it was completely different, actually. So my husband had an events business, and I actually used to do marketing and events. So I was like, do you know what? Let's team up. We can't work together. So I was like, I'm going to set up my own company because I can't work with you. And he's like, I can't work with you. So we established that. So I set up my own separate company, but it was more around corporate events. So I did keep a lot of my clientele from when I was working in corporate. But obviously, when you work in events and marketing, you only get paid after the job. So you could be working for an event that's 6 months down the line and you won't get paid until after that 6 months. So there was a lot of work being done. I don't think I made my first bit of money in my business for a good 3 or 4 months. I was working, but I wasn't earning that income. And the hardest thing, I think, was it was just, there was no business coaches then. So the coaching industry has blown up right now. But back then, going back nearly 4 years ago, there were no business coaches. There was no online business thing. I could not commit to working with someone until I'd met them. There was no Zoom calls. Zoom wasn't even a known thing back then. There was no Zoom calls, no nothing. So a lot of time was spent meeting your prospective clients. And it was just a really longer process in comparison to now. So it was really, really hard, and learning to do business. So when you are with your corporate company, they actually almost bring the business to you. And you can obviously do whatever you need to do in marketing. But when you work for yourself, you are your own sales team. You are your own administration team. You do all of that stuff. So then a lot of time that you think you have got to do business is actually spent doing other tasks that you wouldn't normally have done. So there was a lot of learning. There was a lot of prospecting, and I got a lot of guidance from my husband because he had his own business. But I knew I wanted to set things up a little bit differently from what he was doing. So, there was just a lot of that soul searching and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I tell you what, not a day went past where I didn't look on LinkedIn for another job.
Really?
Yeah.
It's normal, isn't it?
It's so normal. Every single day I was like, let me just check, just in case my perfect job is out there. And I was like, no one really needs to know about this business dream that I had. And I remember every day, I even went for a job interview, and it was an amazing job. But when I looked at the people, I was like, you are the guys I was running away from. Why would I do this again? And I just couldn't do it. And then I knew when I had that interview that this isn't right for me. And I had to make the business work no matter what. And that's what quest I was on. And literally everything I earned for that first year and a half was invested back in the business. So I never took any money out of it. It all just went back in to improve systems, processes. I didn't even have a website, didn't even have branding, didn't have any of that stuff. So I needed to, as I was earning money, implement it back in. So it was quite a hard slog that first year and a half. And something you actually don't know, when lockdown happened, 1.0, so back in March 2020,
yes, yeah,
my business actually came to a standstill. So all the events, all the clients, all the contracts that I had just completely cancelled. So just as I was getting momentum in my business and things were going really, really well, I just had my last event in February, which was a massive kind of gala dinner. And March came and that's it. And not only everything cancelled for 2020, but actually 2021 as well. So I was back to the beginning again. And I guess that's what business is, right? It's that roller coaster that just as you think things are going well, you go back down to bottom again.
Wow. What were you thinking at that point? What was going on in your head?
Do you know what? I was just in shock. I was in disbelief. I just couldn't believe it was happening. And I think for ages, I was just a standstill myself because I just couldn't comprehend it. And where I thought it might just be 3 weeks, as obviously COVID got worse and more people started dying and more events started cancelling, more and more contracts started cancelling. And remember, I work for myself. I'm not guaranteed an income unless I do the work. So if I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. And these contracts are cancelling, everything's cancelling. People are having to let their own staff go on furlough. So they weren't willing to take on any new staff. So it was really hard to even get a job or any new contracts in that time. And I just remember being in a state of disbelief for a good 3 weeks. And the worst part of it was, so me and my husband have obviously both got our own businesses, and his is in events as well. And he's fully events. And so his business came to a standstill as well. But where he's been in business for 20 years, he got a lot of support from the government. So he's loving it. He's out with the kids. He's enjoying the sunshine. He's got his feet up. He's like, first time in my life, I'm getting paid to do nothing. And I, unfortunately, was one of the people that slipped through the net of the government kind of guidelines, and I didn't get any support. And I was just like, and my husband goes, look, why don't you just chill? Just chill. Let's just ride it out and see how long it happens. But obviously, me being me, I was like, I can't just chill. Like, I need to do something. Like, I can't just chill out and do nothing. And that's when I actually had to pivot and diversify my business and think about what else I can do. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here today with my own business. I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't make that decision.
That sounds like a really challenging time, but also the fact that you were able to pivot and do something a little different and it's worked out well. It's all kind of come back in your favor. So tell us more about your current business.
Yeah, so currently, honestly, I can honestly say the pandemic was the best thing to probably happen to my business. And where it all kind of started from was I had some friends who approached me. They've got their own businesses. So they were like, look, you're not doing anything at the moment. Why don't you help us now with our business? Because you've always been busy with other businesses, but now maybe you can support us a little bit. And the key thing they said was, and we'll pay you. And I was like, what? You'd actually pay me? They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, I'm going to actually get paid in the pandemic. So first I started supporting my friends, and then the word started getting out a little bit, and they started telling other people that they knew. And with word of mouth, I was able to make a business, another business. So I was able to pivot my business and have a proposition that worked for kind of small business owners. And what the most amazing thing was, Johnny, it was like this kind of conversation that I was having with people I was working with, and it was refreshing. I was like, I'm speaking to women who are so inspiring, who I'm inspired by, who I want to make their businesses a success. These are actually the people I want to work with. And it was a big kind of reality for me. So that's what I started doing. I started working with predominantly female entrepreneurs. I did have some male entrepreneurs slip in there, but I realized my dream was working with females and helping them develop their businesses and teaching them those kind of real heart-led strategies to help them make their business a success. And not only then did I make my business success in that kind of first round of the pandemic, but so did they. They were able to see success in their business as well. So it was actually a real win-win. And then kind of January, but then what happened, actually, you track back a little bit, I was taking on so many clients, I was actually burning myself out. I just couldn't say no to anybody. And I was actually starting to burn myself out. And I was actually starting to miss out again on family time because I was working. And I was like, whoa, this hasn't happened for a couple of years. So my husband, he'd be like, oh, me and the kids are going to the park. You know, that 1 hour of exercise you could do outside. He's like, we're going to the park. And I'm like, well, I can't go. I'm working. In the evenings, the kids are like, we're having a movie night. I was like, oh, but I can't watch the movie. I'm working. And I'm like, hold on a minute. This reminds me of my corporate life. And this is what I was trying to run away from. So I knew something had to change again in my business, but I didn't really do anything about it because I was just too busy kind of working with clients. And then January 2021, I actually experienced a bit of a tragedy in my family. So I lost my father to COVID. So 12 months ago, I lost my father to COVID. And I kind of realized then that I obviously needed space to grieve and I needed time to grieve. Again, my business came to a standstill because if I wasn't working in it, if I wasn't doing my client work, I wasn't getting paid. And that's when I realized I can't let my business be dependent on me. And I took some steps again. I took some time out, took some steps again to actually create a business that isn't so heavily reliant on me, which is where I started doing a bit more of group work. So I started to incorporate some group programs rather than that one-to-one kind of coaching and teaching. And what it allowed me to do was obviously keep my prices down and support more people in the process. So I think within 12 months, I went from working with about 18 people to working for 70 people. Wow. Which was, incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So the whole of last year was around putting those kind of processes into place where I could just support as many women as I could, because as the word was getting around that there's this marketing person that can help you with your business, but obviously not a lot of people could afford it. So that's where I've got the Facebook group, which supports people for free. And there's other various price points. So I really got creative with how I support people with their marketing to offer it at different price points according to people's investment levels, you know, with their business, what their business can afford to invest. And honestly, it's just been an incredible year. And 2 of these incidents, which took my business down to 0, actually helped turn my business around to see it kind of flourish. So super excited now about 2022. Hopefully there's no tragedy or anything that brings my business down to 0 again.
Oh, wow. What a story. I cannot believe that it's happened twice. And both times you've managed to overcome it and use it to your advantage and just pivot and see what else happens and see what else you can do. And when you talk about helping business owners or female entrepreneurs, let's say, is it purely in the marketing space that you work with them using your marketing experience?
So marketing is the key, and I'll never stay away from that. So even though I can coach them on their business and I can support them with their mindset, those aren't my bag. I would rather support them with their marketing and helping them sell their products and services in a way that's aligned with them. So I work mainly with those soul-based entrepreneurs that might find selling a bit icky, and implementing some kind of marketing stuff just kind of helps them. So I did realize there's some other things I need to help them with. So they don't just come for marketing support, but for those kind of deeper transformations, I did have to be able to provide them with kind of mindset support as well as, you know, other business support. So I've done those trainings to be able to support them with that while they're in my containers. But marketing is the main thing.
And you said in alignment to them, and I've heard the word soulpreneurs. Is that right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? I've seen you use it as well. What does that mean exactly?
So that really means those heart-led businesses, those businesses that are either making stuff or offering services that are really heart-led, soul-based, and making an impact on the world. So they want to make differences in other people's lives. That's something that I've always been about, and I've always felt with marketing, how much difference can I actually make in people's lives? But supporting these soulpreneurs who do everything by the heart. So they sometimes work for free. They don't, charge themselves charge any customers any money. And it's those kind of businesses that I really want to support in making more of an impact. So sharing more of their magic, sharing more of their services with more of the world so they can make a bigger difference. And it's kind of that ripple effect, right? So if I support somebody to reach more people, the people she can then go on and support is going to be so much more. And I kind of want to be part of that movement.
Absolutely. And something you said at the beginning as well around, I think this was before we actually started the podcast, around the future generations. So you mentioned you not wanting your daughter to grow up knowing the kind of challenges or struggles of a corporate world and falling into that trap and following more of what she's passionate about or doing something she loves. And I think all of this, what we're doing, what other female entrepreneurs are doing, for me, it's all about the future generation as well, because I didn't have that growing up. I wasn't exposed to all of these things, just like you said you weren't. And you bringing your daughter or mentioning how, I was just thinking, you know what, that's what I'm doing it for. We want to be the inspiration, the role models for future generations coming through, knowing that there is more. You can follow your dream. You don't need to be a lawyer or an engineer, what I had chosen and society had kind of driven me to. You don't need to be a doctor. You can be what you want to be. You can do what you want to do. And there is money in anything if that's what you're looking for. It's not, and money doesn't mean happiness. It doesn't mean success. And that's another thing.
And it is. And do you know one thing? It changes us as parents. And I've got to share this really funny story with you. When we were choosing my son's school, there were two schools right next to each other. And one was the, traditional, it's doing really well. The Ofsted reports were really good. And it was really, really amazing. And we took my son to see them both. And we then asked his opinion, like, which one do you want to choose? And he didn't want to choose the one whose Ofsted report was really good, even though as parents, we're like, no, you really want to go to this school. And we're like, why don't you want to go to there? And he goes, because they don't do hot school meals. And I was like, okay. And his whole life he's such a foodie. His whole life is based around his dinners and his lunches. And we're like, do you know what? If you want to make a decision based on your stomach and what you're going to eat, you go and do it. And he absolutely loves his school dinners. And it's knowing that, you've got those choices, that you can make those choices and you can encourage your kids to make those choices, because actually, even though academia is really, really important. So if anyone young is listening to this, stay in school, go to uni, do all of that stuff. But even though academia is super, super important, I want my kids to know that actually they need to enjoy life. They need to have fun along the way. And we're going to encourage them to find something they love and just learn to get paid for it. So whether that means working for somebody else or working for themselves, but they don't have to follow that traditional route, because, we didn't, and we're living examples of that. And when I mean we, I mean myself and my husband.
I love that. It's empowering the future generation, right? They can make the choices they want. They can live how they want, and they have the backing of the parents, the society, whoever it is, and all these little shifts that we're making or helping other women make. It's having a huger impact on society in general. So it's all for the greater good, which I love.
It really is. And I think you're right. I think, we didn't grow up with that, but yet look at the females we've turned into. And I am honestly so excited to see what the future generation of fearless females looks like, because I really believe they're going to just take over the world.
Absolutely. Here's wishing to that as well. I'd love that. And to end the podcast, you mentioned that you've got some exciting things happening this year, or you're excited for this year. So can you share a bit about what's next for you?
So it's all about growth this year. So there's a lot more stuff happening in terms of, last year was very much about experimenting, testing the waters, seeing what works with my audience. So this year there's going to be a lot more of that. And I think it's about community this year. It's about bringing people together even more so than ever before. I feel like I've got really used to Zoom. And it's too easy now to have a Zoom catch up, a Zoom call, a Zoom everything. But this year is going to be very much big on that connection, on bringing people together, bringing those communities closer together, and just really working in a super collaborative way. So really look out for stuff. It's going to be super, super exciting. And I really can't wait to share even more with you guys.
Oh, I'm really excited to see this for this year coming for you. So where can the listeners find you?
So you can find me over on Instagram. That's the main place I hang out. So at the Marketing Mummy UK. So come and join me on Instagram.
And your Facebook group as well, which I've got to say is thriving. Lots of good tips, amazing women in there as well. So how can they find that Facebook group?
Yeah, so the Facebook group is the Marketing Club for Soulpreneurs. For female soulpreneurs. I think that's what the new name now is. I just changed it a couple of weeks ago.
I'll put a link for everyone listening in the show notes for the Instagram page and the Facebook page. Be sure to check it out. I found great benefit from it. So, and you host events as well, which I'm really looking forward to joining. Hopefully an in-person one. I'm dying for something in person. So that would be amazing.
Watch this space. It's coming.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Gurjinder, for coming on this podcast and sharing your story, being open. And it's been amazing just hearing from you.
Oh, you're so welcome, honestly. And thank you for having me. It's been absolutely amazing. I've loved speaking to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females Voice podcast. Don't forget, I have a free quiz for you which will help you discover how fearless you are. It identifies where you're being held back in life and will give you some tips at the end on how to improve your mindset and confidence so you are living your best life. You can take the free quiz on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. Also, I'd love for you to do me a massive favor. If you enjoyed the podcast, then be sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you.